Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. I am sorry everything is feels like all out of sorts today, but let's try and get into it right away here. Coming to the charts, we do have some rollovers because we're going to have the treasuries, end of month here. So, starting with the treasuries, we are starting out a little bit on the downside, and there was a little bit of flight to safety coming into the weekend because of concerns about war breaking out in the Middle East, but that risk premium is coming out. Over here in the equities, we are a little bit higher after closing pretty ugly on Friday, and you've got a pretty decent downtrend here in the S&P 500. Oil, as I said, they were up, but now opening up a little bit lower. Gold and silver kind of the same. They had a pretty good spike into the weekend and they are coming off. It really seems like that the gold and silver trade. Do you not have audio? If you still don't hear audio, tell me. I don't know how that would work. It's definitely working. So I don't know. Yeah, Uzi says that he hears me. Okay. It's like I can see it on the meters. Okay. Anyways, gold and silver are definitely benefiting from this volatility in the Middle East, okay? I think that that's pretty clear from the way that it's been behaving lately, and that's something important for us to keep in mind, because if this blows over, our gold and silver are going to come back, right? Oh, and then we got copper. Copper taking the one of the best opens in a long time, and I don't know what would be driving them up like that, but things are starting to look a little bit better over in China. And here is Bitcoin still trying to push. There's got to be a large meta order of some sort in here. Remember that Bitcoin is so illiquid and practically dead these days that just anybody sneezes in it and it goes up, which is fine as long as nobody sells. So there's a lot of holders over there, right? And the 60, 106.17. So pretty much where they've been the past few days. That's where we're at. Oh, thank you so much, all you guys. By the way, Fernanda, it's good to see you again. Raymond, Alan, and of course Uzi's always here. That we shouldn't underappreciate him just because he's here all the time, though. Jim Cramer, World War III ain't happening. Why can't everyone just chill? And somebody in chat says, yes, he's doomed us all. Yeah, might be. That might be. Okay, so one of the big things that's going on in the treasury market right now is that retail has taken an interest. So we've had a couple of people on the stream here talking about TLT for quite some time now. And as we noticed, or I think it was Octavius that pointed out to us that there was a ton of options activity coming through in TLT as well. Zero Hedge had a story over this weekend pointing out that the open interest in some of these options in TLT is getting pretty crazy. So basically, the treasuries have been set up for a big showdown between these aggressive call buyers and the people selling the futures for the basis trade. Now, anytime that something gets popular like that, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't want anything to do with it. But this is kind of an interesting situation because, they're buying and it hasn't necessarily gone up or anything. I suspect that anybody buying calls in the treasuries, although I don't know which expiration they're selecting, but I would anticipate that they might be a little bit disappointed by the volatility that they actually get out of the treasuries. I'm kind of expecting here, especially after this Friday when we get to, well, I guess not just this Friday. This Friday, we've got non-farms, and then after that, we've got the PCI numbers, right? After those, I think volatility, or rather outside of those, I suspect that treasury volatility might be a little weak. And you notice that we've been visiting this 106 even in the treasuries a lot. So we might get some moves that look really powerful, and then after the fact we look back at it and we're like, oh, but we're still at 106. Could be wrong, could move, and it could be just like this huge. What do you mean banks week? The banks already reported. Almost all the banks already reported like 2 weeks ago. But that kind of makes things a little difficult for us flow-wise, because basically you've got two really big flows potentially clashing into each other. So I need to be careful about looking for huge trends. Probably I need to be catching a little bit more measured moves here, and a little bit of counter trend trading, if trading at all. Let's see here. Robert Burgess being retweeted by Mohammed A. El Arian. Never heard of him, but Bank of Japan needs to accelerate its exit from a regime of yield curve control, else an already volatile global bond market can expect much more unsettling instability to come, says Mohammed El Arian. Okay, so he's just retweeting because he was quoting himself. Okay. Mohammed A. El Arian also says 18 minutes ago, the squeezed middle is feeling more squeezed with economic, political, and social implications. Per Bloomberg, despite roaring growth and a resilient job market, more middle-class Americans are worried about the state of the economy than a year ago, a Harris poll for Bloomberg says. Gamirio is concerned about people protesting with masks on and attacking cars. By the way, there's a couple of videos out there about legally what should you do if you're in a car caught. I don't go anywhere. So I don't know if it really matters, but I thought it was some good information to know. Joseph Wang, the ongoing large declines in the reverse repo facility have not impacted financial conditions, but it will eventually increase the level of bank reserves and deposits. At a minimum, this will erase bank funding conditions. Many will also perceive it to be doing more. That's something we should keep an eye on. So that would be kind of a stimulatory effect, wouldn't it? Wow. Mobs break into Makhachkala Airport in Russia's North Caucasus looking to lynch Jews after rumors spread. Oh my gosh. Crazy out there, folks. Yes, typically the broader financial markets don't pay much attention to the U.S. Treasury's quarterly refunding announcement. However, this is changing, as noted by Bloomberg, due to the growing concern surrounding who will purchase the larger volume of debt being issued. And that is Wednesday, by the way. And I think that we get the estimates today. In fact, did we already get those? I don't have it listed on my calendar. We do, but by the way, we have 3-month bill auctions today, so that's really the only kind of economic news we need to worry about today. Jiwi has to call early today, have a funeral. Oh, I'm sorry. I just went to a funeral too. Well, have fun. Is that probably the wrong thing to say? You're going to a funeral, have fun, but funerals can be fun, right? They can be fun. So there's a lot of people, a pretty decent amount of tweets this morning. Yeah, see, here's the zero hedge story I'm talking about. On the verge of an epic showdown, demand for TLT calls explodes to record as Treasury futures shorts hit all-time highs. Nationalism wave in China possibly contributing to Apple iPhone 15's slumping demand. Oh my gosh, I have myself muted. So, decent amount of stuff on Twitter this morning. I don't know how much of what I was just reading I think that I read all that and then I muted myself temporarily. We're good. We're good. Anyways, here's a really good post. This is from Lance Breitstein, who I believe is from SMB Capital. X Trillium top P&L 8-figure trader. Wow. Okay. Have you guys heard of this guy? Lance Breitstein? By the way, good morning, Octavius. Anyways, let me read the tweet. This is good. $10,000 wager against S&P Gurus. I am extremely skeptical of one's ability to succeed only intraday trading the S&P or similar indexes. No broken slot machine equals no edge. Yet huge FinTwit ecosystem of courses and chat rooms exists, giving false hope to good-hearted people that can't afford to waste their time or money. If the marketer is not providing edge and verifying proof, it is unethical for them to cause harm to their consumers. I agree. My $10,000 gauntlet for those in the marketing courses / services. 3 years of statements, indices traded 80% of the days, over 250 index trades per year, and a net P&L over 250 from the daily trading of indexes. Yeah, there's not going to be even a single one. I don't know if there will be even a single one. I mean, the net P&L needing to be 250, that already like really crazy narrows the range. But even if you put no cap, and you had to say 3 years of statements, and you traded 80% of the days and over 250 index trades, I would be surprised if you got even one that's been profitable trading indexes for 3 years. Well, there probably could be some. Although I don't think there would be any of the people like teaching systems and stuff like that, right? But I agree. It's like, if you're not... So I don't think that you necessarily have to post like all your daily statements and all of that to prove that what you're doing is like... But when people are coming out and saying that they're profitable, that's like a different thing. Because like there's lots of information about the market that you can prove and is useful. Like that's kind of what we talk about. But those are things that like you can empirically prove. right? But most of these gurus really are saying like, trade like me and you'll become rich. And I don't think any of them, they're trading indexes. I don't think very many of them are actually making money. But it's interesting to me that he specifically picks on the indexes. I'd be interested to hear what other ones he thinks aren't likely to lead to profitability. Because I've always been like, trading the indexes is hard. I wonder if anything will come out of that. Oh, there's a post here on. I got that from Reddit. Gotta admit, it's pretty. The ICT guy has already responded to him, has he? When I worked for Goldman and I spoke to the traders there and I, expressed interest in the S&P futures, they kind of laughed because they said that it's like pretty impossible to make money from it. I mean, they had people trading the index and doing like some sort of arbitrage stuff off of it. But like trying to trade intraday moves off of patterns and stuff like that, they're like, it's a crapshoot. Day traders considered themselves successful if they bought a stock at $10 and sold it at 11 and bought it back the next week at 24 and sold it. Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I guess that could happen, but I think that one of the most common thing that happens is that people will trade, really small trades and have like huge stops, and so they find a way to make it seem like most days they're making money and they feel good about themselves because most of the time they are winning. But then one day they'll blow the account, and then when you blow the account, like, can you really feel good about yourself? I mean, like, honestly, I had I'd say 2 or 3 runs here since the summer, I would say, that have been bad. So I don't really feel very good about my trading right now. I mean, I feel good about the information that we have, and all of the stuff that I put on the channel are things that like I can verify are real behaviors about the market and ones that I believe can help you. But I wouldn't consider myself profitable over the last 3 months. But like that's the whole thing is before that the whole year it looked really, really good. So like, most people are just not looking at a high enough time frame. So he said 3 years. I would say 5 years. I always challenge these people to show me 5 years worth of trading, because hardly anybody in the retail space ever makes it that far. And it's just crazy that everybody focuses on a month's worth of, everybody focuses on a month's worth of profits when this is stuff that we measure in years. Like even just pulling out 1 or 2 years of successful trading is hard. Although I've definitely seen people do that. I've seen 2 years and then blow up many, many, many times. He does do sell things. No, I don't think okay, so here's this person on Reddit. I think most people commenting here missed his actual point. He's not saying that there's no edge within futures or that it's impossible to be profitable with them. He actually said there's definitely a select few people out there who are able to consistently. I don't know. I think he is kind of suggesting that there's not an edge in trading indexes, or at least that retail traders don't have an edge in trading indexes. So I'm thinking about this and I'm like, okay, let's say that Seth had not gone back to micro yield futures when the yields came out, and I continued to trade S&P 500. And somehow I had been very successful in that time since on the S&P 500. Okay. Some strange, bizarre alternate universe. Okay. How would I have done it? Well, I think that I would be the sniper, just like I am here in the treasuries. I would wait for opportunities where I have a really, really good idea of what the flows are going to be, and I swing trade it to try and get, like the full day's run or a multiple day run based on a flow that I know of, right? That would not result in like 250 trades a year. I don't think. There's 250 a year or total? Yeah, 250 trades per year. That would mean that you have to trade most. Well, I guess it wouldn't be because isn't it like 300 trading days a year? Something like that. But it's a trade a day. And I probably wouldn't be a trade a day. So even if I had been trading indexes and was successful, it wouldn't qualify because it's not enough trades. The probability of there being people who are able to do so and then selling a legitimate course is very low. Probably. But I really think that what happens, honestly, is that they'll have a little bit of success. Like they'll have one run in a 6-month period that's really, really great. And then they turn around and they're like, oh, I should teach people. Right? I kind of feel like I was coerced into it. It's like, well, let's do this video journal thing. And then people watched it. And then people start asking you questions. And you learn stuff. You make videos about it. Videos about things that I think that everybody should know going into trading, but aren't necessarily edges that not necessarily giving you direct edges. Not things that, you could compete with me on, rather. So, like, equities are much less efficient and thus have much easier setups to run on, but they come with the price of liquidity / fill issues and more. Yes, exactly. That's what I was saying, though. If remember last week I was saying, if I'm going to scalp, it might make more sense to do it on equities. Although, on the other hand, flows... so you should be able to find more predictive flows in larger instruments. So you should be able to find some pre-predictive flows in the S&P 500, for instance. It's just, I don't think that you would get enough trades. So it's funny to me that everybody in the thread is arguing about index futures themselves. But I mean, isn't that kind of the whole point? There people are saying they put a lot of caveats in the thread. There's actually a lot of comments on this post. I'm going to write here. I think he's probably right when it comes to indexes in particular. They are incredibly random on short time frames. So traders trade them with lots of risk. It seems like it works for a while, but you can't make it. Seems like it works for a while, but they always blow the account before 3 years. The more liquid an instrument is, the more predictive signals they tend to have. So you'd think there'd be lots of opportunity in indexes. However, I think it's just... I think there's just too much noise intraday. So if you were going to have 6... it's a long-term success there would probably need to come from. Most of my money is invested in blue chip stocks. Well, that's good and bad, right? So let me tell you something. If you are to the point where you are contributing to your 401k and your IRA, and those, you're probably largely going to want those to be in index funds, right? So once you get past that point, and you're investing in individual stocks, I would not recommend having everything in blue chip stocks, because I mean, you're already like diversified into blue chip stocks, right? So where you start to gain an advantage by investing in individual stocks after that is your ability to, diversify and take on other risks. Your ability to do things like invest in companies that will make more money during a downturn. Invest in companies that, when they do go up, they'll go up a ton, right? You by having more risk in some individual picks, you can actually reduce the risk of your overall portfolio. So if you're going to invest in individual stocks, I wouldn't put them all in big stocks. I would have at least one that's a small cap stock. If I'm going to have 5, I would have at least one that's small cap. Octavia says 106 evens being sticky, we should get a good breakout. Well, they definitely hung out there for a while before reversing a little bit. I'm not seeing the flows come through, but I don't know. So remember that all the retail traders are long here. But the way that it moved down overnight, does not give me a whole lot of confidence in us getting a really strong bull run here. We might return back up to like 106.04, but like getting all the way back to like the overnight highs in like 14.5, 16. I'm not going to hold my breath. I had a bunch of thoughts while I was talking about that and that I didn't get out. I was going to say one of the other things that I see happen a lot is like the type of person that tends to trade. A lot of them are narcissistic. There are a lot of really, really narcissistic people in this space. And this is why I constantly running into them on the subreddit and like these people that like, you know, I'll challenge them on something and they'll just get so unruly and just like mad. It's like crazy. I'm just a guy on Reddit. Come on. It's because they had a little bit of success and now they've built their entire self-esteem on that. And to question it is like an attack on themselves. It's an attack on their very being to them. And such a person has a really hard time when they blow the account, right? Then they're in denial. Then they hide it. And they don't tell anybody that they hit the account, right? So they're too narcissistic to admit it. All part of growing up. Okay, I'm a comment. Where is the, I want to retweet this thing. Ego, that's a problem. Yeah. Ego will really destroy you, right? Once you become humbled a few times, it gets you in check. Yeah. I don't, unfortunately, I don't think that being humble alone is enough to fix you, but you still need an edge. Many give up too easily? Well, so here's the conundrum. At what point do you give up? So at this point, I just love it too much that I don't think I could ever, quote unquote, give up. I'd say I've had struggle past few months, but it's mostly just giving up gains that I had made. And I think we're still on an okay track, and I can keep trading this. I'm not anywhere close to blowing an account or anything like that. But, it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort for something that, doesn't really pay, to be honest with you. Like even when I'm doing well in futures, I trade super, super small, so I'm not going to make a living from it or anything like that. It's like, well, should you really be spending, 20 hours a week on that? Well, I don't think it really makes sense, right? I don't think it really makes sense, but I only do it because I enjoy it. Really. And it would be nice. I want to have the experience of running a business where, like, I have employees and things like that, I'm not sure what I would do that would get me there. That's why I'm kind of moving towards the CTA and investment advising kind of thing, because I think that I have a considerable amount of evidence to suggest that I have a pretty good handle on those things. And, I'm pretty good at that. I've had some success with that. Intraday trading, it's really good and then it's really bad. And I really think the reality is that we do have a considerable amount of edge, but that it's really hard to have the edge all the time with the way that we trade, right? Like you have to be informed, and you can't always be the informed trader. That's really, really hard, right? So that's where I think I kind of, a long time ago came down on the, this makes a great hobby. I don't think that this makes a good, like, you're going to make a living from it sort of a thing, right? But, could I be spending that 20 hours on something else? Like, I guess I don't know what it would be. I don't know what it would be. Because I would probably just sleep in. But on the other hand, one might also argue, well, it's because you're just not hungry enough, Seth. Maybe. I'm not very hungry about it. I do just fine. Otherwise, and that's the thing. Is like, futures can enhance your wealth, but I don't feel like it's a very good wealth builder. Well, it's an interesting thread, but there is a lot of denial. There is a lot of denial in that Reddit thread. Trump says as president, he'd deport all resident aliens who join pro-Hamas protests. I don't know, man. That, on that particular issue, because I am concerned about the survival of Western liberal values. And I'm not sure if there's a whole lot you can do to reverse that one. It's a challenge. That's what I think we find enticing. Yeah. Oh, right. On this point. Yeah. It's just like, I don't think that like Western civilization is going to collapse. But I think that if we're looking at this from the perspective of like, I don't think that it's going to collapse. But if you look at it from the perspective of there's like the Christian world and the Islamic world, the way that the Islamic religion is set up is it's kind of like an imperialist religion. Like their intention really is to like take over the whole world. And the Christian theology is not set up in that way. I mean, they were colonial at a point, right? But it was like, we're going to go and enlighten people and help them and things like that. And then it kind of didn't work out. As I think that the long-term thing of it was, that didn't really work out, and people have kind of given up on that sort of a thing. So in that kind of competition, I don't think that the Christian nations can win that. So Europe probably does become majority Muslim at some point. And how much of the Western values will they retain? I'm not too confident in how much that they will. Let's not talk about the Crusades. But over here in the United States, I'd like to think that, I believe in the system. I believe in the U.S. Constitution, and so I don't think that the U.S. society is going to collapse. I don't. But, some of these trends that we've been seeing the last 20 years that concern people, I'm not too sure that we're going to reverse them. Just like here, Donald Trump saying, I'll deport all resident aliens who join pro-Hamas protests. Okay. Go ahead. Do it. What are you going to do about all of these kids that are pro-Hamas? Right. So, and it's pretty freaky. This is pretty freaky to watch, like just outright anti-Semitism spread everywhere. And it's so wild to me too, because I can remember I guess the crazy thing is that it's been like almost 7 years since Donald Trump became elected, right? Like Donald Trump coming along is like ancient history now almost. But I remember everybody talking about anti-Semitism on the right, and I'm like, what? There is anti-Semitism on the right, but what I find on the right is actually more, I don't know what you would call for apathetic anti-Semitism, right? It's kind of like they don't care about it. They don't want to be involved. They want to be. So you already changed clocks? What do you mean? I don't think we've done that in the US yet. Let's see here. Or maybe we did. No, we haven't. That's November 5th. Yep. Uzi already beat me to it. November 5th. So next week, next Sunday. Yeah, so we're like in a really, this is where we're like disjointed with the UK markets and stuff. Yeah. Really annoying. Not for nothing, but it ain't like the victims of anti-Semitism haven't been pushing DEI culture replacement PS for a couple of decades or more. Yeah. Well, and again, I would state that this like woke ideology, a lot of its roots are in pro-Hamas. This is not just like some like, oh, okay, like maybe woke was okay, but now they've got this one wrong or something. No, like this was a large part of why the woke ideology even came about. It's a large part of the driver behind the woke ideology was that they felt that the people in Palestine are being oppressed right now. Right? Because like, okay, if there's oppressed and oppressed, everybody thinks that it's just about the African American community in the United States. But do you really think that the Democrats care about the African community in the United States? Come on. It's always been, I tell you, it's almost always been about Palestine. It really has. Like, okay. What am I getting at? Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. Have you guys seen the new South Park movie, quote unquote? I wouldn't really call it a movie. It's just like a really long episode. And you can only get it on Paramount Plus. Which, by the way, I'm not going to give them my money. I don't want to encourage this. Everybody has to get every little streaming service. And if we put the coolest show on it, then we're going to get another streaming service. No. I want one or two streaming services. You got to give me the whole package. I'm only going to have the two best ones. And anybody else, like, stop wasting my time. So that, you know, those services that are doing well can have the good content. But it was on TikTok. so I watched it on TikTok. And the episode is going after Kathleen Kennedy's treatment of Indiana Jones and Star Wars and all this sort of stuff. Okay. And when it comes to the like come to Jesus moment where like, you know, what they think kind of comes out, basically what it comes down to is like Kathleen Kennedy says that she used the Pander Stone to make movies, but then when she made those movies, people would like send anti-Semitic letters and so forth. And so because she was getting the anti-Semitic letters, she felt like she needed to try even harder to make these movies that would like bring down racism or something like that. And so they were kind of pointing out something that I think is very true, which is that these two things, it's like a, you know, it's self-triggering cycle where these two sides are triggering each other over and over again. One person does this thing, and then that causes this guy to do this, and then it causes more people, and it just becomes a bigger and bigger thing. Because it does seem to me like that race relations in the United States have gotten worse since people started making these like woke shows and stuff like that, right? So it's just like there's autistic people out there that don't like their favorite IP getting changed, and then they start to react like with racism. It's the wildest thing, but it almost kind of comes into like, I think that some people just want to do like the most offensive thing possible, and that's what it is racism is the most offensive thing that you can say, so that's what they do. So I think that this kind of dynamic has been driving US politics for a long time, right? 9/11 happened, so then conservatives reacted by starting the war in Afghanistan and being very concerned about security and foreign policy ideas. And so then the left reacted with the MoveOn.org movement, where they're basically like, we need to get out of those places. And the right and the left have just been going back and forth this whole time. And so because Israel is like the one, you know, democracy in the Middle East, they've kind of become a trigger point there. and the left have started to support the Palestinian side of things and support a bunch of things that wouldn't make sense for them to support if they were really being strategic about things. But they can't, because they can't help themselves, because they're like triggering, and they're just like knee-jerk, doing the opposite of what the conservatives are doing, I don't think anyone is pro-Hamas, but they want to free Palestine. It is free. It is free. Listen, so here, half of the problem, I tell you what, half of the problem, I think, is that there is a lot of propaganda out there, and there are a lot of people that the way that it works is they want to show, hey, everybody believes this. This is the cool thing. You need to get out on the street and you need to march about this. And then you go and you talk to the people that are marching on the street, and they have no clue what they're talking about. Okay? So, like, they're chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. You know what that means, right? That's a euphemism for kill all the Jews. It's a euphemism for genocide, guys. Okay? Because that's the whole territory. If it's going to be quote unquote free, what that means is there's not going to be any state of Israel anymore. They think that Israel sold the land and that they should get the whole thing back. And that's what they're saying. Okay? Don't kid yourself. Okay? There's the people that are saying kill all the Jews, and then there's the people that have no fucking clue what they're talking about and are getting tricked by these people into supporting genocide. That's what's really going on, okay? So just when you hear this stuff about that are like pro-Palestine, okay? Because if Palestine needs to be freed, it needs to be freed from Hamas, okay? There are oppressors out there. There are oppressors. Hamas are the oppressors. You realize that the world has flooded billions, and I mean billions of dollars into Gaza. Billions of dollars. And this is like a 15 square mile area. Can you imagine how much you can build that tiny of an area with the billions of dollars that the world has sent into that place if they just invested it? And they didn't. They turned it into weapons. It's insane. It's absolutely mind-blowingly stupid, right? That these people could hate the Jews so much. We give them all the money and everything so that they could just go and live in that area and be fine. And they don't care. They just want to kill the Jews, guys. It's literally that's literally what they want. Right? Because there's Israel, and then there's Gaza, and there's the West Bank. Okay? Where is it that the Israelis are supposed to leave from? Okay? Israel hasn't been in Gaza since like 2007 or something. Like, it's been a long time now since they ended the occupation over there. And even then, they weren't like colonizing it and stuff. They were just like, they had a military presence there to be able to root out terrorism, but they were still letting the area be like autonomous. So, like, where is it they're leaving from? You get what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. The idea that most people have in their head about what's going on and what free Palestine means is not even remotely close to what the reality on the ground is. And once you understand like what the reality is, it becomes very clear that, oh, actually what they're talking about is they just want to kill all the Jews. It really is. It really is. I don't know. I've said that about 5 different ways, so I hope you understand how it was just... In the end, they'll be lucky if Israel gives them a casino. No, I don't think Israel has any interest in holding Gaza. They would be... There's nothing Israel would love more than for Gaza to give up all terrorism and just go and live their lives and become successful. You know that in Israel, like, they allow people to cross the Gaza border and come and work in Israel, and that all of the Israelis like intentionally are doing, like, they want the people in Gaza to have jobs and like better jobs than the jobs that they can get in Gaza. And their hope is that by giving them the jobs and being nice, that will create more people that will, you know, give up on the terrorism, essentially. They want the Jews to, what? Yeah, okay, but so that means that they want them, where are the Jews supposed to go? Like, Boca? Oh, the Jews all need to move to Boca Raton? Is that come on. Here one of the things that, like, when I learned this, I was really like, oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, there are some Jews that just never left there. Like, you know, like, they got scattered, but there's always been Jews that have, like, been coming back and have lived there, right? And then when the Jews came in, like, they bought the land. Like they came in and they bought houses and stuff, right? And then it wasn't until Muslims, like, started attacking them that then there was that, I forget what it's called, but in other words, if the Muslims had just been like, well, okay, Jews can come in and buy property here, that's okay, and just left them alone, the Muslims would control more of Palestine than they do. In fact, there probably wouldn't even be a Jewish state. That's, like, the wild thing about it. But I don't think that in fact, here's the other thing is you say that when you, Lucas, you said, this is what the Jews wanted too with Palestinians, and what they actually did. Israel, in its inception, was a land for Jews and Jews only. Absolutely false. There are 2 million non-Jew Palestinians in Israel today. They have full voting rights. They are Supreme Court justices. They are legislators. They have full citizenship. Okay. And in fact, all of these people, because when there was the war, a lot of people became refugees and got displaced. Everybody that came back after that war got citizenship. It was the people that refused to come back and started to support terrorism, and then they weren't allowed to come back, become citizens. So that's not true. Like these people that are out, like, marching for Palestine, like, what do they think the logical conclusion of what they want actually is? Right? Because I remember a time when it was like a 2-state solution, right? Liberals would argue there should be a 2-state solution. Okay. We gave them a 2-state solution. They wouldn't take it. They were given a 2-state solution on 3 separate occasions, and they didn't want it. That's why they don't talk about that anymore, because they know that the Palestinians don't want to take that. They want the whole thing, guys. Right? So if you're out there marching for Palestine, you just realize that basically what you're supporting is genocide. There's just no way around it. Like, you're trying... I see how people try and justify it in their minds and stuff, but if you really understood the situation, you would realize that there's no way to be supporting Hamas over there unless you support genocide. But can I tell you something else? The whole woke ideology wants to separate people into oppressors and oppressed, right? Okay. And this is always thought of in the context of like colonization, like some other group of people comes in, takes over your land and your resources, oppresses you, etc., etc. Those people should be given their land back. That's what they're kind of saying. So the most woke kind of person would say that the United States shouldn't exist and that we should give it back to the Indians. Okay, that would be like the extreme. That would be like the extreme woke kind of take on things. Okay. Well, there are oppressors and oppressed people in this world. There really are. But the oppressor that you should be worried about almost always comes from within. Like, look, just think about here, us trading, okay? Because you kind of have a disadvantage, okay? If you go out and you're trading on your own and you're all you got, probably not going to be very successful in trading. That's why we have this stream. Working together, we stand a little bit of a chance, okay? And it's still tough and we still have our bad times, but you would do a lot better working together than you do by yourself. If you have your house in order, nothing can stop you, right? You can just ignore what the other people are doing and be successful on your own. This idea that like you can never be successful because they took all this stuff away, it's total nonsense. If you have your stuff in order, nothing can stop you from being successful. Okay? So then how do people get oppressed? It always comes from within. It's always your leaders selling you out. Almost always. Almost always. Right? So how does that apply to this situation in Israel? The oppressors always come from within. The oppressors of the Palestinian people are Hamas and the Hamas leaders who live over in Qatar and order bombings and all of this other stuff while they sit in their mansions far away from all of the violence. Those are the oppressors. Always from within. If the United States falls, it won't be because of, or if Western democracy in general falls, it won't be because of some external threat. It will be because they got sold out by their leaders. Always, always, always. You go back and you look at it, it's almost always some guy at that, in the end, there'll always be some leader sells the country out. Okay, well, so for the first 10 minutes of the S&P 500, they're looking pretty good. They've made 10 points. The treasuries are at the higher end of the range here, but it's, you know, it's pretty tight. It's pretty tight. How about that? Oh, dude, like, I've watched too much of the footage from that day. Makes me sick even thinking about it. That one video that you're talking about, and you see the dog, and then I think the thing they show after that is they show like the trail of blood where they like killed a guy and then dragged him through his whole house. Oh my gosh, disgusting shit. It's just absolutely, I can't even fathom how people can see that going on and then express support for the organization that did that. What the heck is wrong with people? And this is when you go back and you look at things like World War II Germany, and you're like, how could something like that ever happen? Right? Well, it seems to me that when people make a mistake, like a political mistake, and they put somebody in power or they support an ideology that's like objectively bad, that when all of the things happen that would prove to you that this is a bad thing and that you were wrong, they just bury their heads in the sand. They refuse to change. They refuse to admit that they were wrong until they are compelled to. Okay, Netanyahu, regarding its Arab population, Israel is not a state of all citizens. According to basic nationality law, we pass Israel only. Okay, so Israel is an ethno-state. That is what I think he's saying. Is it's an ethno-state, which is to say that the state of Israel exists to promote the interests of Jews, primarily. Okay? But that does not mean that they do not give full rights to non-Jewish people. They do. Okay? If Jews became a minority in the country, then it would be a different thing, right? Then you'd have a problem. Okay? But that's, I don't think, a concern. But to say that their intention is to only have Israelis there, or to claim that it's an apartheid state, is just objectively false. Okay. What they have is they have two autonomous areas, the West Bank and Gaza, that they have allowed to be autonomous and have developed terrorist factions in them. So they're dealing with the terrorists. Because, like, honestly, if the Palestinian people just said, like, screw Hamas, we don't want to be involved in terrorism, go away, rooted Hamas out, stopped letting them build tunnels and shoot rockets and all this sort of stuff, right? Like, if the everyday people said that, then the conflict would be over. People in Hamas would be allowed to live their lives and be autonomous. People in the West Bank, the same. Although I'd say that the West Bank has been pretty good as of late. And it wouldn't be a thing anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Who is the richest tech billionaire with the most actual technical skills? I don't know about that. Well, Bill Gates has a lot of technical skills. I don't know how good he would be now. Steve Wozniak, yeah. Woz was a true geek. Oh, what are you saying? Where is the pita heads? Oh, you're talking about I see. What's happening in the United States is kind of like when you send your kid off to college and they come back and all of a sudden they have all of this woke ideology and you're like, how did this happen? Did I not teach them well? How could they become so misinformed? Right? That's exactly what's happening. Is now the nation as a whole is experiencing this, right? To see their kids, they're going out marching pro Hamas and they're like, oh my gosh, how could my child be promoting like I literally watched on television as terrorists attacked the World Trade Center, killed thousands of Americans. We went through this whole big long thing to try and root out terrorism. Maybe it made things better. Maybe it didn't. But that was the trauma that we went through as millennials. And then we turn around and our kids are coming out of school and supporting terrorists. Like that. It's like that thing happening on a societal level. And a lot of older people now are like just absolutely horrified by what they're seeing. So, what are we going to do about it? Because the issue is, once you see your kids supporting that kind of, once you see your kids expressing things that like you really seriously disagree with. I mean, it's obviously your kids are going to take a different tack than you, and that the kids are kind of prone to like ignoring their parents and wanting to go and do something different and be unique and all that sort of stuff, right? But sometimes you'll really see them just go completely the opposite, right? To where they'll hate their parents and their culture they came from and stuff like that, right? When a kid gets to that point, it's already too late. It's already too late. So now what do you do? So now it's like the whole nation has to face the same conundrum that I face in my daily life. Not sure there's a good answer to it. So, I hope you feel really happy about the future today. It's the only consolation is that I think that success breeds success. And that's not to say, when I say breeds, I don't mean like, you know, if you're a successful person that your kids will likely be smart. That's not what I mean. But I mean that like successful ideas and ideologies will tend to be successful, and unsuccessful ideas and bad ideologies won't. And so I believe that those of us with good values, and I do believe in the values that are in the Constitution, will eventually win out somehow. Somehow, even though it doesn't seem like it. And how that's going to play out, I have no clue. Because everybody thought that it was going to be like, oh, you get the right president, he's going to turn things around. Well, I think you got that person that would have had the best chance of doing that. He didn't really accomplish it. If anything, he made it worse. Now people want to bring him back and they think that that'll fix it. I don't know how that's going to work out. Like, the whole thing, they're like, he's in like 3 court cases. They're like throwing his lawyers in jail for being his lawyers. It's like, but it looks like he's gonna win the election. How do you match that one out? All of that, and then he still wins the election. Then where are we at? That's gonna be wild. I can only think that like something else crazy would have to happen in the interim, because I just can't ever picture that happening. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? S&P is still going. Treasury's still doing nothing. Well, this move up is about 5,000 contracts. So I guess even though it hasn't moved very much, the flows are actually pretty typical. You're moving to another house, says Walter. Well, the S&P 500 is up about 10 points. Treasuries are down overnight and are kind of being a little lazy this morning. Like, they're buying it up, but it's really crazy slow for some reason. When is new? Well, we don't have anything today. I've kind of come to the, when people say things and I don't understand what they mean, I just assume that I understand what they mean and just run with it now. So be careful when you're writing things, all right? So I had this experience the other day. I've been trying to sell a couch and a chair, and I've had them in there for a while. And I put this Lazy Boy recliner up for $50. And they're like, is that your lowest price? And I'm like, really? $50 is not cheap enough for you. Okay. Maybe I need to just maybe I'm going to just have to give the chair away. Is that, the chairs are like that common of a thing now that Because you would be paying thousands of dollars if you were buying this thing new. Yeah. $50 is too much, huh? But there must be somebody else out there selling it for less than $50, right? Americans can't stop spending. 5 reasons why. What? Hamas leader abroad Khalid Marshal says the Russians told us our October 7 operation will be taught in military academies. The Chinese are thinking of carrying out a similar attack in Taiwan. What? How would that work? That doesn't make any sense at all. That's probably just propaganda, but like, okay. My neighbor told me that the dragon's head is going to transmit into Pisces today around midnight, so markets are going to go into a tailspin going forward. Oh, man. It's just wild to me the things that people think are going to move the markets or predict the markets, right? You know what's the one that's been driving me crazy recently? Is like Zero Hedge will always have like a, is this market going to follow this market? So the picture that they have right now is the one of NVIDIA. And I think it's like NVIDIA versus Oracle or something like that, right? And like when it doesn't go down when it's supposed to, they just like adjust the chart. It's like, no, you can't change when they match up after the fact. Come on. You can't change it. That's cheating. But I mean, they did that with the S&P 500. They're like, is this market going to follow the Great Depression? Is it going to follow the market from the Great Depression? And then like when the market rallied like 2 months and then they give up on it, they stopped showing it. I mean, there are some things that are predictive, but just realize that the market's like a living, breathing thing. It changes. And you kind of have to watch it and understand what it's doing and why to be able to predict what it's going to possibly do. And it's probably not going to be able to predict it perfectly. Now, I'm just noting that the 30-year, when they broke out from 04, they did it pretty forcefully. I'm not seeing a spike in volume from it, but it is a pretty consistent buying trend. So I don't know if it would have been worth a whole lot, but there's probably a meta order involved there. I need to like brush my teeth. My mouth just feels dry. It just feels dry and dry. Now that I've written that down, my mind is screaming at me to ask him about Dragon's Tail as well. There's 09, 10, 3 center. It's a big order there at 03 half too, so it's kind of hinting that they might continue through. I mean, this is a point at which you would start to see some exhaustion if it was just like a pullback. I don't think that that's happening. Could, but so far that's not happening. I'm gonna be interesting that a lot traded there in the micros too. So like the micros are being pretty aggressive about it. So maybe, it's a Monday, but maybe I do need to consider trading it. My issue is I feel like it's already come up a lot. This last swing is 10 ticks, so we might get some big orders come in here and then it start to rotate around this. Really, 8.3% of Americans earn between 150,000 and 200,000. 15% earn between 100 and 150. Still going. 75 was kind of the place that I guess I would have had the opportunity to hit into it. Definitely missed the trade now. But would I be getting 865? I don't know. This one is actually quite interesting because I'm not really seeing the currency market move too much. Nah, the treasuries seem to be moving on their own this one. Well, it's holding back there a little bit. The 30-year did come back a little bit more that time. Biden issues government's first ever artificial intelligence executive order. Hedge funds load up on uranium stocks? Wonder why uranium would be moving. Oh man, do you see when they tick back up there, the treasury is like sold that hard. Or the micros sold that hard. Went like 4 ticks all at once. Okay. It's kind of lining back up to go for another leg. The 30 is not quite there. There you go. Maybe they'll go for it. Nope, I guess not. Not that one, at least. Still threatening it, but not doing it. Let's see here. What's this AI? Oh, there they went. Okay, and there's 865. Although it is acting a little rangy here, even though they just took that, so can't really take that as an entry. In fact, might reverse from that. That sort of behavior often results in a reversal. The thing is, what's driving them? Oh, well, the dollar is falling out here now. Interesting. Wow, they really fell off of that. What's with that? Wow. How are they back to? Oh, what the heck? Am I the only one looking at that going like, huh? I mean, like, of course they said, well, the way that it's acting, that can, okay, so I knew that there was a possibility with the way that the flows were going that it could be a reversal, but they came almost back to the open like that. What's with that? That's a little bizarre to me. Like, if I had been short 875, I would barely be able to make the 10 ticks, and then I'd be underwater 10 ticks. Oh, you took one there. That's interesting. I got a short off at 07.5. Oh, that's amazing, guy. That's great. It was weird. Like, so if I'm seeing pressure, right, and there's a meta order going along, and then all of a sudden there's a breakout, and now because after the breakout, now I'm seeing the orders come in short, and it, like, look at the cumulative delta over here, right? So long, really big long. And then a new high, but after that, there was no longer this consistent imbalance. There was sells now, right? So now you're getting narrow-ranged bars, right? It might be interesting to look at total buys versus total sells in that area, because I bet you that there's just a lot more, okay? And then, so that's what makes me say, oh, okay, because sometimes you'll see that, where it's like, they just want to, they're just going to bust the highs, and once they bust the highs, people are filled, and it goes back the other way. But it came all the way back almost within 1 minute, right? Like it erased a good hours worth of, I guess it depends on where you take it from, but like you could argue that they just erased all of the progress that they've made the whole session. What's the blue line up here? This one? That's the buyer's average cost basis from the overnight. So yeah, they weren't able to get to that. So what I was saying earlier when they came here, come on. My pen is not cooperating with me this morning. When it was right there, that's why I was like, oh. Maybe, this would be a spot where they would kind of come to and find exhaustion. But it doesn't look like that's what's happening. It looks like they're going to run through it. They did. But they weren't able to sustain it for whatever reason. This is really bizarre. Okay, maybe there was a news headline and I'm just missing it. The Bank of Japan to tweak policy to let 10-year yields exceed 1%. That would do it. Okay, so that headline explains why we got the quick reversal. But now I'm really suspicious about the move up before it. In fact, I'm really, really suspicious of it now. Isn't this not the first time they've said that they would let 10-year yields exceed 1%? Okay, so by the way, this pullback, so like we had the sell, it's pulled back up into the vacuum that was left from that, but the volume has continued to be sell through that whole thing. So they are selling it. And the Japanese yen's spiking out of there too. Is the yield curve going to do something weird here? It might flatten. I wish I had caught onto that a little bit sooner. Might have been able to have gotten a better price. I was looking at 885 and I FOMO'd. So that's not looking too hot. If the Japanese yen continues to appreciate here, it really could spell trouble for U.S. yields, right? They hadn't said it explicitly yet. The policy is still to cap long-term yields at 1%. They will give formal statement tomorrow. Well, okay. Do you know that was coming? Because I have to say, the way that that played out was a little suspicious. Like that they were buying it up into that so that they could sell it or something. Yeah, you know what happened here was my news squawks were a little bit behind on that one. I don't think I had neglected. I didn't have financial juice running for some reason. So that was my mistake. But I see like Joseph Wang retweeting about it 6 minutes before some of my news squawks posted it on Twitter. It's been, yeah, that's true. I have caught wind of that. I guess that's why I was kind of like, didn't they already do that? Well, how the market reacts to this one will be interesting. Seems like a reason for yields to spike back up above 4.9 again, but let's see. If not, above 5%. Okay, well, you're getting a bit of back and forth at 0.4 It seems like there is still more selling than buying there, but they're still holding it. So the 30-year is starting to languish there again. I'm trying to read the yield curve here. The change on the initial move, it steepened, but you know, like that reverted very quickly. I've seen some behavior here that kind of suggested flattening. Now I'm seeing behavior that kind of suggests steepening. But the tendency over the recent past, this isn't always true, but over the recent past has been yields going up and the yield curve steepening. So I suspect that what we will see happen here is the 30-year will come back down to that 108.29 area and drag the rest of them lower. The S&P 500, also off of that news event, seems to be giving up its gains. And the treasuries seem to be holding this 0.4 area fairly well. Okay. I mean, one would expect it to play like that, long end being more volatile than the short end naturally, plus the curve being inverted and trying to normalize. Well, yeah, I mean, when it has to do with like monetary policy and so forth, like the shorter end tends to be more responsive to it, right? But the long end, you have more duration. But I think that this particular event would be like not changing inflation expectations. So that means more term premium, and ergo, I think you should see it more in the 30-year again. So like, because it's kind of monetary policy related, you might be tempted to think the short end, but it's not, because it's in Japan. And so you're curious, they come back to the seller's cost basis, and then they're just kind of evening out again. The Japanese yen appears to be going higher, though. This is also a little bit of an odd twist, because usually the Japan 6J and treasuries are positively correlated, but in this instance, they're opposite correlated. It makes sense to me, although I'm not sure I can justify it with the frameworks that I usually use to determine which way they would be going. Them allowing yields to rise should mean more money going to Japan, so that's good for their currency. But it also means yields worldwide will rise, so it's going to be bad for treasuries. Although, perhaps one might think that some robots might be coming in and trying to trade against us because normally they're positively correlated. That might explain some of the interesting behavior we've seen here around 04.5, but it's probably just a standard liquidity hole, right? Yeah, now the treasuries, sorry, S&P 500 giving up all of its gains since the open now. We'll see if they start to go for some of the overnight levels, though they have to get all the way down to, let's see here, 41, 43 or so before they're at like overnight lows, so that would take quite a bit. It could totally happen, though, if yields move much more. There's the 30-year kind of starting to try and drag them down and centering itself around 109 even. It's kind of funny. I came in today being like, well, we might need to look for more ranged trades, but something going on with monetary policy and the Bank of Japan and so forth, that's something that could lead to really big moves. So and so far, my scenario with the yield curve is playing out. The 30-year is looking down and is dragging the other two along with it. End of month flows is a good thought too. You know, I don't think about those as much until the very last day. Usually they are buying. I don't know what they would be in this. I mean, usually they tend to be buying, but I also wonder about the risk parity funds. They might be doing something a little different this month, right? Because we're down on the month in the treasury, in the S&P 500, aren't we, right? Let's see here. What was the beginning of the month? Oh yeah, we were much higher at the beginning of the month, right? Much higher at the beginning of the month, but they probably also lost money in the treasuries too. Yeah, they lost money in both equities and treasuries, but probably more in equities. So probably you sell some of your treasuries and buy equities. But it might not be as big of a factor as it normally would be then, for instance. Higher for longer. Yeah. Well, they're moving. Do you see the headline from the Bank of Japan? Basically saying that they are going to adjust yield curve control to allow interest rates higher than 1%. That's what drove this move. Again, I can't get over how suspicious that movement before that headline came out was. Because they were pushing up. There was like a breakout, and it was getting... And then all of a sudden, it just... So far in the 10-year, I'm not seeing the appetite. There was when I started this. Not when I started this. Like when I started this, that was about when the selling subsided. It hasn't picked up again yet. They're kind of threatening it. They're kind of starting to push that way. But I haven't really meaningfully seen the selling come in quite yet. And we didn't quite see the overnight lows either, did we? No. So I have to wonder if we get below 31, if there's... people get a little upset. You know? Okay, that was a little bit. There's some clicks on that one. Some bids pulling out of the way now. Oh, those weren't in the treasuries. Those were in the SPOOs. Ah, because they're breaking lows. That's why. Gotcha. Bank of Japan will telegraph before, during, YAM. Like I actually said earlier, this has been doing rounds since early this month. Oh, Uzi says I think Uzi said that one before we knew what was going on, though. What he said, I'd be surprised if it goes for evens again and breaks down. Because I'm kind of betting on that now at this point. On that little move from 05 to 02 or so, there was a little bit more flow to the downside. I should also point out that we see the dollar sold initially, but we see the dollar stabilizing. So the dollar and the Japanese yen have decoupled because they're both going up at the moment. Tell you what, if you were trading Japanese yen currency pair and you'd caught that one, you probably would be swimming in it now, huh? Okay, so we have a C tier economic number at the bottom of the hour that I forgot that I missed. Let's see here. Dallas Fed Manufacturing Business Index. Expected reading -16, previous reading -18. Yeah, I really don't understand why y'all think that, not y'all, when I say y'all, I mean the Bitcoin community thinks that this ETF is coming. Okay, they have rejected 5 of them. The court came in and said you have to revisit the decision, and they're going to fight it, and they're still going to reject it. And the reason wasn't like, oh, well, we don't like how this one was structured. It's like, it's a problem with the Bitcoin market overall. So this idea that the SEC is just all of a sudden going to magically approve one is just insane to me. I don't buy it one bit. And in fact, what was it? 2 weeks ago? And a headline came out that ETF was approved, and Bitcoin kind of took off from that one, right? And when I read that tweet, I was immediately like, nope, I don't believe you. I think that you're lying. That doesn't mean anything. Yeah, so I have actually seen that. I know what you're talking about, Gary. Yeah, there's an actual QSIP out there. So it has been like listed on a particular data or whatever. But that's something that they always do in preparation and tells you absolutely nothing about whether the SEC is actually going to approve it. No, you're wrong. I'm sorry. So again, I go back to, why would it be that the SEC has rejected like 5 Bitcoin ETFs now, and like gone to court to fight having to approve one, and now all of a sudden they're just going to do it, huh? Don't believe it. I also don't think that's what's driving the move up. No. Okay, well, I guess we'll just see. But I don't believe it. I don't think it will happen. Quite frankly, I mean, part of this is that I don't think that it should be approved. I think that it would be incredibly irresponsible for the SEC to allow an ETF on this. After what just happened with the FTX debacle, and frankly, all of the fraud and everything is still in there, it would be so irresponsible to expose investors to that by creating an ETF. I really don't think that they're going to do it. There's another 3 ticks. And I don't think that BlackRock wanting it has any bearing on that, whether it will happen either. What you got here, Akshay? Is that just the filing? That sure looks like it. Wait, that was filed on October 18th? Yeah, that can't be the one that he's talking about. So he was saying that like the QSIP was out there, and I had seen that on Reddit, people talking about that, And people explained how these guys preemptively make a QSIP for all of these and that it doesn't tell you anything about whether it's going to get approved or not. That can't have been for something that was just put in on the 18th, right? Maybe that's for one of the earlier ones. I don't know. But on that note, if it was just here in the 18th, like it usually takes them 3 to 6 months to even look at it and respond, right? So, yep. QSIP gets assigned even before approval. Yep. If that's the one you think is going to get approved, like, hope you got time to wait, because that's going to be a few months, even if they did approve it, right? Like I'm saying, even if that specific one did get approved, it wouldn't happen until next year, right? Help me out here, actually, because I'm sure you probably know more about that than I do. But my recollection has been that for all of these, that they've been out for like 3 to 6 months before the SEC responds to them. But I forget the actual process. Okay, we haven't busted the lows, but we did push lower than that initial push, so we'll see here at 31 you might start to see the stops. Let's see here. How long does it take to approve ETF? Okay, approval is required from the SEC's Division of Trading and Markets, which can take up to 240 days. Okay, so it can take, so let's say it can be as short as 90 days and as long as 240 days, yeah? Ouch. Okay, so that downtick, a lot of orders hit back up into it, but it held and still stayed. Okay, now the buyers kept pushing and they ticked it back up, but that was like a really heavy downtick. That was a really heavy down. I think that we will have a new low here. I think that they're going to touch 30.5. Can always be wrong. I hate like putting myself out there like that because I'm always going to like somebody who's going to try and do something based off of what I say. But that was a really heavy downtick. Did you see GM and Ford capitulated on the electric cars? I had not read about that yet. I had seen the story on Zero Hedge saying that they had a preliminary agreement of some sort. I did see that. So the agreement has something to do with electric vehicles? Nah, I feel more and more anti-electric lately. You know? Okay, well, they bounced. They were able to tick up, so it's reading tea leaves. There's actually some stacking there at 106 even, in fact. So that's like the opposite signal now. The volume does seem to be evening out a little bit, so maybe somebody is buying off of some technicals. The 30-year is still looking bearish though. Oh, come on. Maybe not. Interesting. Okay, well, I'm pretty married to this trade. It did pull back a little bit. So I could have gotten at least 20 at one point. I'm going to try and give it a little bit more time, I guess. But I think I missed one potential offloading area. I'm seeing stuff where, like, I will see some volume come through that looks like unusual to me, or, you know, like catches my eye, and I'll hear the click, but the click is actually in the ES and not the treasuries. So I also, this little bit of a turn here seems to coincide with the dollar backing off again. The Japanese yen still looks poised to go higher though. And you can see the 30-year not really backing off, although they have not touched 21 yet. Come on. Come on. It's right there. There you go. One of you guys decided to hit it. Thank you. Two. There you go. There you go. And 20, yes, stops. Maybe in the 30-year there. Here's where maybe we start to see stops in the 10-year. I can hope. I did you a solid and bought another share of TLT. I have to admit, Uzi, when you first mentioned that trade, I was like, you know, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I should do that. I started to do that. And now I'm starting to read stuff like Zero Hedge talking about how there's like tons of calls in there and it's kind of setting up a showdown in the treasuries and stuff. And I'm like, okay, when I see that sort of stuff, it's usually a bad idea to get involved, right? Like now I'm kind of wondering if that it's either that the yields are going to have another spike or if volatility just decreases substantially. Because, like, I don't think those calls are going to get paid. You know, like a trade in options starts becoming popular enough that it's that, like, a trade like that can't actually pay out, can it? I don't know if I've ever seen a situation like that where it paid out like that. Oh, I guess the NVIDIA one would probably be an example of when it did. But when it did, it came back so fast, right? So I'm a little suspicious of that trade now. NASDAQ will did. I'm trying to remember which incident you're talking about. I totally remember talking about that, but I don't remember what their trade was. That was like 2021, right? You're talking 2021. September 2021, actually from SoftBank. Okay, interesting behavior here. So, they took like one new low in the treasuries here, the 10 years. So I did not get the kind of like flush I wanted. So I think I'm going to take the $20. Oh, fuck. Did it again. pissing me off. I didn't take that one live. Shit. So it was a great trade too. Actually, I wouldn't say it was a great trade. I would say it was an average trade because my entry wasn't very good. Well, I would say no. Like, I would say that after everybody got involved in AMC and GameStop, that most of those investors lost money. Okay, that 43.22 would definitely be like for me to get out. So, man, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. That does put me on a good winning streak, even though 2 of those trades in that winning streak were accidental sim trades. Gosh. Well, I you know, it's not that big of a deal. For instance, this one wasn't. If it had moved like 10 basis points, then I'd be really pissed, right? But I'm actually a little frustrated by the way it's moving here, so. I kind of still see this Japanese yen as kind of like looking like maybe it would go higher, but it's evening out pretty good. No, so like, I don't think that you can have a trade where the whole public gets involved and they're all getting in options and everything, and then after the public gets involved, they make money. Because where's all that money going to come from, right? Like, at best, half of the volume has to lose money, essentially, right? So, like, I don't think you can have this thing where, like, the public all buys in and then it goes higher and they all make money. Where's the money come from then? Right? Doesn't really make sense. Unless it was like they all picked up on some amazing company that did something super amazing and just made so much money that they did get paid. I don't think it can happen. So that's why anytime I see that it's like that stock is being talked about incessantly on CNBC and all that stuff, I'm never going to enter into a trade. And if I'm in a trade, I might think about getting out. Always. And I'm just, they're saying that with TLT now. And so I'm like, well, is TLT really going to reverse? I don't know about that one. You know, like, I think that it's probably going to go sideways, if not lower, until everybody's options expire. And then maybe he can recover, right? Like, so it's gotten to the point where I'm a little suspicious. Because last week I was looking at it, and now I'm like, no, I'm not getting in that. Well, got 15 minutes here. What should I? Well, so we should do a little bit of analysis here. The treasury. So, to recap what happened, we had a push here, and this push was very strong volume. I don't know why the pen is complaining here. Something's running that it doesn't like. Anyways, so we moved up. Then almost as soon as we broke out there, the flows turned south. And that's when we found out that there was a Bank of Japan thing. So I got in somewhere around here and just waited for it to come out, and then got out about right here, I think. Now, I accidentally had it on the wrong account That's the second time I've made that mistake. So I need to be more careful about that one. But it was a good trade. I had to sit through it for a while, but the selling did come through in the end. Now, when they broke the lows, I expected there to be a lot more stops and so forth like that. I don't think that we got that. So it's reversing. If I was still in the trade, I would be up plus 10 now and probably really frustrated. So I think my exit was okay. My entry was not the best. I could have gotten $5 to $10 better on the entry. I had to sit in it for a while. But it was an okay trade, right? Because of the Bank of Japan. Now, I'm concerned that we could see yields go even further. But the flows don't seem to be supporting that theory yet, do they? So watch out for the VIX to go parabolic on a day in the future. Good. Well, because one of the things that's been happening is that, like, the intraday volatility has been insane, but it hasn't been leading to, like, a longer-term volatility. Which is kind of interesting, right? Does kind of suggest that there's just a lot of money sloshing around on an intraday basis and not actually going anywhere. But that's another one that I'm kind of like, can that really, the amount of trading that we're seeing, the amount of 0 day to expiration volume that we're seeing, is that really sustainable in the long run? That brings me back to, what will the VIX be if the S&P drops 1.5% every day for 60 days straight? Okay, I know how to calculate this, but not off of the top of my head, right? But it would be like an insane number, wouldn't it? For 60 days straight? It would be mid-single digits? Are you saying, like, what would it, well, wait, what would the S&P 500 be if it dropped 60 days straight? It would probably be... Okay, actually what we need is I need like a compounding interest calculator, right? So if we say that the S&P is 4160 right now, and we say 0 and we say 60, and the rate that we get is negative 1.5. Will it not let me put in a negative? It will not let me put in a negative. Oh, the variance would drop to 0 because you have the 1.5% movement every day. Okay, but if that happened, do you think that the VIX would actually price it that way? I would think that would be a situation where theory would break down, right? It's the ISDA methodology. Okay. Variances. So variance drops to 0. Ah, okay. So it'd be strike price plus e to the 0 times call price minus put price. Yeah. It would be 0. Wait. Is that undefined or no, it's 1. No, that's wrong. Am I reading this wrong, my bro? Tell me. Probably I am. I haven't, done a whole lot of study on this. So here he's saying the ATM strike price for near-term options is 1965, and the ATM strike price for the next term options is 1960. Applying their respective call and put prices to the formula, so then they say strike price is 1965. And then these numbers they get from up here, which is the variances. And you're saying that the variances would be 0. So 1965 plus this number is actually 1966, because this component would basically become 1. But that's not the whole calculation, is it? ERTT2, that's the 0. No, that's 1 too. So where would you say it would get to 0 then? One has to calculate all those positions which have to be sold, which forces the CBA is probably using a 30-day because the index is calculated on 30 days. Use that calculation and do it for 60. I guess I don't understand. Probably beyond the time and attention that I have at the moment to look at. Are they going to come back to 04 again? They're like, oh, Seth missed it. We'll let you get back in at 390. Or 489. Well, is this is not the ISDA paper? Yeah, it says CVOE. ISDA VIX. I don't know what you're talking about. This was from the CBOE. Wouldn't that be what you'd want to look at? Oh, I see. So you have to do, this is what Gary was saying, where you have to look at all of them and there's a contribution that they make. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do remember when you asked me that before. I you know what? A 1.5% per day for 60 days, they probably would close the market before that. They definitely would. What I was trying to, so do I, compounding, I wanted to see what would actually would that be if you, I mean, you could put negative interest. Isn't it P E to the RT? Right? So, so it would be 4160 times E to the negative 1.5 times 60, essentially. Right? Am I using the right formula here? Pull up our calculator. E to the negative 90. Oops. Let me try that again. E negative 90. Negative 90. No, I'm getting it wrong. Oh, I'm using the wrong formula for sure. Wait, where are you getting 0.985 from? Where did you get 0.985 from? This one says n times 1 plus growth rate to the p. Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha. 0.985 to the 60. 0.4. 40% decline. Okay, fair. Okay. But a 40% decline would not be unreasonable, would it? That would be... Oops, wrong one. That'd be somewhere around like 30,000 or something like that. Oh, 40% of the original value. Well, the high is 4865. Or did you already tell me what it would be? 1680. Yeah. 1680. Whew. That would be pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, you would expect the like VIX to be like up in the hundreds, but what are the squiggly lines on this chart? So I have long-term moving averages on here. That's probably what you're talking about. Then this one down at the bottom is just showing me statistics on the average range. What would I make about a matching algorithm? It's first in, first out. It's that simple. Very, very few markets work on anything else. Yeah, clearly though, like, for the market to move down 1.5% every day there'd just be no way that it would ever happen, right? Well, let's talk about that. Well, it's time for me to get going, but moving averages on a daily basis do tend to be areas that the market seems to care about. Like, if only for psychological reasons, like people are watching them. I don't think that you can use these levels to predict anything. Like, I can't say, oh, we failed to get over the 50-day moving average here, so now we're going to go down and we're going to dip below the 200-day moving average. That's the sort of thing that people would tell you and say that they can predict and so forth. I don't think that you actually can, and all of the back testing that I've done suggests that it doesn't really work that way, right? But what you can do is you can use it as a benchmark. You can say, well, look, we're below the 200-day moving average. That's pretty bearish. This market is more bearish than people realize because we've been up so much this year, you know, but it's a pretty bearish turn. Like, I use levels as benchmarks. Be like, okay, well, it hit this one. The next, like, key spot that people would be watching is this one. And you just kind of watch them and see, you know, it kind of gives you an idea of how aggressive that flow actually is. I tell you what, in terms of like market turmoil, I still don't think that anything I've seen beats out that craziness that we saw in February of 2018, was it? That was really weird. And I've never seen anything in the market like it. I mean, the COVID market, I remember during the COVID market kind of being like a little bit like, this is a little silly. Like when we were hitting, I don't remember being panicked and like, oh my gosh, this is so unreal. Like when we were like hitting stops, or sorry, like when we were hitting the trading halts, you know, like I remember being annoyed that we were hitting trading halts. That I remember being annoyed that the market was freaking out that much about it, you know, as compared to that February of 2018, where like all of the liquidity in the treasury just completely disappeared. And it started trading like it was like we just had a non-farms report all day. That was wild. That's, I think, the wildest thing that I ever saw. But clearly, you know, the amount of craziness that I'll see here in the futures doesn't 100% correlate to how fundamentally important it is to the market, right? Because obviously the COVID 2020 crash was much more significant. And I obviously vastly underestimated its significance. And I wasn't watching the treasury market in 2008, but I do remember those days, because those first days in October, that was basically when I started watching the markets. I don't think that there's been a day since that I haven't gone and looked at what the index was. So I remember those days. That's one of the things that I always look for. And you can't really see very well on this chart, but you know, you'll start to get these clusters like this sort of a thing, where the range of the days is just really excessive, right? I guess you can kind of count this one. This one, right? Now this one is weird, because this one is just a whole big long period of excessive volatility. I always used to trade. Okay, you get too much volatility on the downside, and that's when you buy the dip. And on this one, I probably would have bought the dip around here. So I probably would have bought here and then freaked out. But Brexit, that I remember Brexit frustrating the hell out of me too. So the ones like Brexit and when the US trade war resolved itself, I remember there being these flows that were very, very much counter to what had just happened. It was like you got the knee-jerk reaction, and then for the rest of the day, there was this counterflow that was like, and everyone was like, "Oh, it doesn't mean," you know, they were putting out all this disinformation essentially, and then eventually it did move the way that. So like, if you swing traded it, you would have won, but you day traded it, you would have lost. So those ones have always been really frustrating to me. And I've kind of taken to, like, when something that crazy happens, to kind of be on the sidelines, unless I already have something going. Okay, I've gone, like, way over. I don't know what we're even talking about, but it was kind of good to talk about those old times, I guess. I'm honestly, though, like, some of y'all are talking like something crazy is going to happen right now, and it's easy to feel like that, but I kind of suspect that things might get a little dull for a while. Like, I don't think that we're heading for a recession in the next few months, right? Like, if we're heading for a recession, it's going to be like after the summer 2024, right? So that means that you've got a whole like 9 months for the markets to just be like sideways and frustrating, right? Okay. See you tomorrow. Stay excellent.